Today we're going to the northeast of England, to a place that is famous because of its luxury and a Scottish king. Hi, welcome to today's video. Today we've come to Barnard Castle, a place I've never been to before, and as you can see the castle is just behind us, so why don't you come with us and let's see what it's like inside on this wet, typical February day. Come on. Barnard Castle is actually run by English Heritage, which I've mentioned before. Great system where you pay something monthly and you can visit hundreds of castles for nothing, or alternatively you just pay at the gate. But like all of them, they have these little shops, wonderful places for little things. Today I've come with James, my 17-year-old son, Layla, who's 13, and Pepper the pug, so if you hear any grunting noises, it's not me. Now Barnard Castle is actually the name of the town as well as the castle. Obviously the town came about after the castle was built, and that's where it's got its name from. But the castle itself is one of the oldest castles in the UK. That is because most of the castles were built by the Normans who invaded into the UK in 1066 with William the Conqueror, and this was one of the early castles built. It was often actually classified as one of the best castles in the country because it was luxurious for its time. The first castle was built by John Balliol, a Norman knight who was granted the lands by William the Conqueror just after the Norman invasion. For those who don't know, William the Conqueror was a Frenchman who decided that he should have England. Took on Harold. Famously, the Bayeux Tapestry shows a character with an arrow in its eye, which is believed to be Harold, or could be Harold. He then came across in 1066 and took what is now England over for the French and changed the whole of England. He did this by building castles everywhere, showing how strong they were, these conquerors. Now Guy's son, Barnard, began the construction of the stone castle we can see today. Barnard over the centuries became Barnard, hence the name Barnard Castle. So really it should be Bernard's Castle if you like. Over the centuries the castle was expanded, strengthened by various owners, including that family and the Earls of Warwick. We're going now into what's called the Great Ditch, which to be honest I'm not quite sure why it was dug, but it separated two areas. The first area that we've just walked through is basically the outer area, which would be the public area where people would come and trade, member villagers would come into, that sort of thing, whereas the inner area is where the main castle part is where the dignitaries would be, where the defenders would live, that sort of place. But this place isn't quite understood fully yet. There's that little door at the end that you've just seen, and why that was there nobody's quite sure. They do know that the ditch was actually a lot deeper, so this small door or gate would have actually gone a bit deeper, and there's a theory that this was a way to access it from a bridge from the river just below the castle. The modern bridge crosses what was once a wet moat between the town ward, the middle ward the town ward being where the average villagers would go. You can clearly see that the gate there is sunken well into the ground, showing how much deeper at this end it would have been where the wet area of the moat was. A buttress on each side of the pit indicates that at one point the bridge would pivot. When the bridge was released, the weighted inner side swung down into the pit and the outer side rose to shield the gate.
That bit there, see there, very wet. They're around the right side. They live on the around sides, not telling me which side. Now I think it's going to be trenched. So you see.
We're about to go under this bridge. Now, at one side of the bridge is the outer ward, where everybody could go into. And at the other side of the bridge is the middle ward, which was like a buffer zone to stop people going into the inner ward that weren't allowed. So the bridge would be something to stop that inflow of your average everyday villager.
That would have been a furnace. Probably used to cook things or that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's brown black inside. Actually, it's not a furnace. That was the latrine chute, because that's the base of what was a tower, a defence tower. And obviously the people up the tower needed to go to the toilet occasionally. And that's where it would come out and just be shoveled straight into the moat. Or automatically go into the moat as water lashed into it.
Why are you climbing up? You might want to hold on to the side because it's very slippery.
If you like this sort of video, like day trips out and ideas for holidays, why not hit the subscribe button? And hit that like button. Doesn't cost you anything for either, but it helps me tremendously. Anyway, let's see what else Barnard Castle's got to offer. And the outer wall here with some raised land, so that with some wooden steps and structures those defending could look over the walls easier. Very important thing down there, and you'll see these dotted around castles, it's a well. If you don't have a water supply and you're in a siege, you're in big trouble. So there's a few of them dotted around this castle, as you'll see. And now we're crossing from the outer to the middle, and you can see that the middle area is a little bit smaller than the outer area because, as I say, it was a buffer zone. Like if you've seen the Scarborough Castle one, there's masses of area for everybody. For obvious reasons, a lot of people had to be protected in these areas during battles. What we're coming to now was called the Constable Tower, and the constable or gatekeeper was the person who stopped people coming from the outer ward to the inner ward. The building itself is in the middle ward, the section between the two, but right next to the bridge that goes into the inner ward. The constable actually lived in this building. This was his home. If the owner of the castle was away, he was the person in charge of the castle. We're about to cross a bridge into the inner ward from the middle ward, and although this is a modern bridge, it is the place where the original bridge was, and you can see the view. Somebody attacking this castle had one steep incline to get up to. Now as we go across it, there is actually all the structure underneath of the old original bridge, to some degree anyway, and the building in front of us, that was the inner gatehouse. You'll actually know that it looks like there was two buildings, one almost opposite the other, and there would have been a gate in between, one at one side for the guards to be in, and one at the inner side of where the gate would have been. Obviously that's long since perished, and it's just the outlines that are now left of the actual buildings themselves. And then we reached the main part of the castle, which, as I said before, was classed as an outstanding, luxurious place to be in the 11th, 12th century. Looking at now is the Mortham Tower, leading over to the Great Hall, and then right at the end is the Round Tower. And just a little bit further in the distance you've got the Postern Tower, and finally at the end of it the Prison Tower. So starting with the Mortham Tower and the Great Hall. The Mortham Tower, the thing on the left, was originally 2 stories by the end of the 12th century. By the end of the 15th it was a 5-storey structure, and then the Great Hall being this area in the middle here. The point is, with that 5-storey, that was Richard III. He built that before he was King of England. And if you can't think who Richard III was, you probably know a little poem to remember rainbows by. Richard III again battle in vain. So that's probably where you remember him from. But he was a Yorkshire king, King of England, based from Yorkshire, and he was not necessarily known for being a great king. His remains were actually found under a car park in Lincolnshire recently. They wanted to bring him back to Yorkshire, but it was decided to leave him in Lincolnshire. Strange, really, for a Yorkshire king. Well, it was King of England, but he was basically Yorkshire based. There you can see the River Tee just running outside the castle itself. Well defended spot. And I wouldn't want to be trying to climb up there to beat the castle. The Mortham Tower, the bottom floor was in essence the kitchens and storage for food and wine and beer, and the upper floors were accommodation, and then the Great Hall for entertaining. But as we're now going to the Round Tower, which is probably the biggest structure in the area, you can see that this was for defence as much as anything else, with your little arrow slots there. You're trying to shoot against somebody, you ain't going to get between those bricks, those stones, but the view that they've got of people attacking the castle is fantastic. And you can see this isn't, to say this is sort of coming on for 1,000 years old, they certainly built them well in those days.
Staircase there. That's from old tools.
The tower is actually on 4 levels. You've got the ground floor, which has a chamber block next to it, somewhere for people to actually sit, eat, perhaps sleep. It's also got the latrine exit down there, which would then obviously be fed into the moat itself. You then on the first floor a bit more of a warmer room with a fireplace, some views out, so you can see the outside world quite comfortably out of those. The second floor, a little less ornate, more of a place to shoot arrows from. And then when you get to the top floor, well, that's obviously great visibility to see what's going on around you. But can you imagine, you're a soldier working here, look at the view that you'd have outside every day. And again, it is such a fantastic place to visit. The actual town itself, look at it, the river running by, the rapids. You can see by those stairs there how steep it is to get up there. And all this will be protected by the castle. One interesting fact about this place is it was actually, although in England, the seat of the King of Scotland, for a short period anyway. In 1292, the 17th of November to be exact, John Balliol II, who was descended from the Scottish royal line via his mother, was given the throne. However, John's reign was cut short in 1296, when he reputed Edward's authority and made an alliance with France. In the English invasion that followed, the Scots were defeated and John was captured and imprisoned in the Tower of London. His English estates, including Barnard Castle, were confiscated. 5 years later he was exiled to his ancestral lands in Picardy, where he died in 1314. So although it was in England, the King of Scotland came from here, briefly. Although the family Balliol has long since disappeared from English history, they actually do have their name continuing, because Balliol College is one of the colleges in Oxford. It was actually after John's death that his widow made payments and continued to make payments up until 1282 and endowed the scholastic community with a charter. This is the formal date that the foundation of the college was made and became one of the best known institutions within the University of Oxford. Quite a feat for somebody this far up north. One thing I did notice, these staircases are very, very thin. I struggled to get my shoulders through them. But right here at the bottom, got quite a unique situation. There's a well there, which, as I said before, wells are very, very important for castle security. But also, if you notice what I walked past, a stone coffin. Right, Layla's 13. Her head won't fit in it. Right, her body is barely in it.
Move down a bit.
Yeah, but for a 13-year-old, it just shows you how big a difference there was in heights. Come on, get out.
She wasn't in it fully.
Well, you try, James.
Oh, obviously I'm not fit.
Exactly.
Yeah, but her
Bearing in
feet
mind-
were like this.
Yeah, just get in it and then put the light on it.
Put my bum in it.
Dad, do you want to go?
No, I'm not that small. This tower was added in the 12th century.
Into it.
Right, now we're going to the postern tower.
Right.
And a postern tower was basically a fortification. So an additional way to protect the castle itself.
Oh, is it?
There's not a great deal left of it, so
Oh, they're around.
it doesn't really give a great indication of what was there, but apparently it was over 2 floors. And, as you'd expect, right next to the wall itself. As you can tell by the camera, the actual picture, you've got little raindrops on it. It was starting to drizzle a bit now. Getting a bit wetter out there. The tower that we're coming up to now is called the Prison Tower. So I'm sure you can guess what this place was for. It was actually made in the 1200s, and it wasn't until the 1500s that it's ever referred to on documents anywhere as the Prison Tower. Whether it was used for that before, who knows? It's described in the 1500s of having 3 stories. The 2 lower ones, like that room there, were cells. The upper one containing lodgings for the jailer. It may have been a basement room, but that's yet to be discovered. The only access to those cells would have been via the jailer. And that building that you can see the shape of, and there's 2 pits there, would have been the bakehouse, where everything was cooked for maybe the garrison itself, and those little fenced off areas were pits for storage, or that's what they believe.
Would you want a little bit of help down there later?
Brackenbury Tower, named after Richard III's servant, Sir Robert Brackenbury. But this was more of a residential place. You'll notice the staircase at the side as we came into it. This area very, very well, poorly lit, but above was a fireplace, and it gave more of a feel, because it had a latrine, as a living area, so that's what they believe it was, whereas this was more storage beneath it.
So, that's Barnard Castle. What did you think of it, Layla?
I thought it was quite good, much better than the other castles we've looked at.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought this was better than Scarborough?
Yeah. There's
I thought-
much more to look at.
Well, I suppose the views at Scarborough were a lot better because you're right on the coast, whereas this you're in the middle of the town. But yeah, there's certainly more buildings still in place in Scarborough. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our little trip. Don't forget to leave a comment and tell us about your experiences of Barnard if you've been to here. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.